Okay, another sword video, I guess. So I have a customer that wanted the Conan sword. This is from Hex 3D, I believe. And I've got some, if I can get that on the light, some pretty good layer shift going on some of these pieces. And he said it's okay. You can send them. You can see the layers shifts. And that he would fix them up, it's no problem. But I don't really want to send something like that to somebody. And on this piece right here, if I can get the light on it, you can see it kind of didn't fill in the middles for some reason. So I told him I'd do a couple of rounds first, so I'm not sending him something that needs so much work. So I'm going to do 2 rounds on these pieces, both sides. Paint, sand, and prime. And I'm going to do them all together at the same time, so when I paint them I can kind of get an even layer on all 3. I don't want one piece to get thicker than the other, then they won't fit together correctly. So I'm going to go over these with some 80 grit just to knock off any little zits or anything, and I'll come back and I'll actually paint one side of one. We'll look at the paint going on. Okay, I've sanded all my pieces with some 80 grit and give them a little wipe off. So they should be pretty good. So I'm going to try to paint one. See if I can keep it on the camera. Okay, so with our paint. So you just gloop her on and then spread it out nice and smooth. Make sure you get it into all the layer valleys, let's call them. Okay, and it'll focus in. Well, that's what you get for just using an iPad, right? Terrible focus. If you brush in one direction, you should see it's covering up the PLA. And if you brush it in another direction, because of the angle of the layer lines, you should see some white PLA, the higher points that don't get covered. So we'd rather go with the direction where they don't all get covered, the higher points, because I just want the paint in the grooves, right? Not necessarily on the PLA. So I'm going to sand this right down to the PLA, because I want to keep all 3 pieces. That is really blurry now that I take a look. There we go. Because I want to get all 3 pieces pretty much the same thickness. So I'm going to keep them right at the PLA. So I'm going to do 2 rounds, but I'm sanding right down till I touch PLA on every piece. So I'm just filling in the grooves. So if I got a better view now, so you can see some white where you see PLA. If I go in one direction, it'll be white, and the other direction should cover them up. You'll see that as you use it and get more experience with it. So I'm going to paint all 3 of these pieces, both sides, sand them right down to the PLA, and prime them. And we'll take a look at what we have. Maybe I'll come back after the sanding so we can look at it. But that's all there is to it. You want to spread it out as thin as possible, right? So you have less to sand, and you're not wasting paint. You know, I know I'm not going to try to do this in 1 round or in 2 rounds. All I'm trying to do is 2 rounds and make it as smooth as possible for the customer, so he gets some nice pieces. Another thing I wanted to mention too that I don't think I mentioned in any other video is because of the layer lines, right? Weight drop. So this was printed straight up like this, standing straight up. So when I spray it, right, I'm not going to spray straight on with the primer, the filler primer. Otherwise, I'm filling in the valleys just as much as the PLA hills or mountains, let's call them. So my layers that I'm trying to fill will stay the same size. So you want to spray at an angle, so you get like the snow drift effect. So I would spray it at a top angle and then at a bottom angle, so it fills in the layer lines more than it lands on top of the PLA itself. If that makes any sense. A nice diagram would probably be better. So I will not spray straight at it like this. I would come at an angle first, like that, and then I would spray it at an angle like this. That way more goes into the grooves, the valleys, than on the PLA. All right, I've yapped enough. So I'm going to paint these and sand them, and then we'll take a look at what we got. Okay, so I painted my pieces, both sides. And I'm going to try to sand one right here on the camera if I can. And I'll try not to speak while I'm sanding, which I notice I've done in other videos. And speaking of swords, I'm actually doing another sword. I think this is a Reaver or Dark Reaver. So you can see it got some bad layer shift, and right in that spot I just did some paint just to show the difference. So you can see it filling in the layer lines as well as the curve lines, because there is a curve on it. And this side I've given it a couple of rounds to already. Other than my fingerprints on it, it's perfectly smooth. It was just primed, so I'm making marks on it. So you can see the difference you can make. Just a couple of rounds of filling and sanding and painting. Just night and day. Still gonna have some of the roundness of it, the curvature that way. But once it's painted with chrome or something, it'll look quite beautiful. So I have my sandpaper. Again, I can't recommend this paper more. It just lasts so long. I mean, I've been using this on piece after piece, and it still has lots of grooves and lots of sanding ability. So I'm gonna try to sand this, at least some of it, and keep it on the camera. It's very awkward for me reaching over an iPad, but here we go. So you could hear this sawing sound, the scratching. So I've already hit PLA. So I'm almost done. So you can see there's a little bit more paint right here, and it's nice and smooth here. So I want to get all that off. I want to get everything off right down to the white and gray stripes. So that's pretty good right in here now. You can see it filling in the layers. So I'm just going to sand all these pieces, both sides, and prime, and we'll probably still see some layer lines, and I'll do round 2. Okay, just a quick little update. I have all my pieces sanded, and that took like between 5 and 10 minutes. It took a little while because of this groove in the middle. So we got our nice, I don't know, looks like bar coating on all our pieces. You can see where it was closer to the build plate, where it was smoother, and then it started layer shifting bad at the top when it wobbled. So I'm going to go prime these and come back at that point. Okay, I've got my pieces back from priming, and you can see lots of layer lines. So I'm going to give these one more paint, sand, and prime, and then off they go. There's that little defect that was in the middle. Or maybe it was on this piece, or maybe it's on both. Yeah, it was this one, where it dug in for some reason. So you can see at the bottom a little better, and then it gets worse as it goes. So I'm going to paint, sand, and prime, then we'll come back and look at them, then off they go in the mail to their new home. So I have my sword back. It has 2 rounds, and there's still spots where you can see there's still some layer lines, but he's good with it, the customer, so this is going off to him like this. But we got rid of almost all the layer shift. So it's actually pretty smooth now. You just have to do a little bit of fill one more time, and it will be all done. So that's it for this video. Couldn't show a complete finish, but I did get another order for another sword. So I may be able to finish that one, maybe tack it onto this video.